Are you just Facebook, or do you MySpace too?
In Germany, we have something called StudiVZ.
Are you also using Grooven Student Stata?
Yes, I'm using StudiVZ.
Eric, you ever use Goofenstuda?
No.
I don't know, guys. I don't know if this Goofenstuda one is legit.
All right, that's the marketing video. It should all work at Zynga. But it kind of relates to what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, which is the concept of taking an internet property to scale. And I thought I'd just share the 10 major lessons or chapters that I've had to go through, and I'll try and do it before I get the funny voice. So chapter 1, lesson 1 is fail fast. So I failed fast and often and realized I didn't have a career working in anyone else's company. Chapter 2 took me a long time to learn, which was to really get in touch with what your real goal is. And so I left all those jobs and started a consumer internet company in '95, and I vaguely knew I was interested in consumer new media. And the company was bought before I had to really figure out what my goals were. I went off and was more thoughtful and really had this passion for something consumer internet, and then by accident I started this company, SupportSoft, which was an enterprise software company. Before I knew it, I was CEO of a large, boring tech support software company. A couple years later, I came back to this consumer internet thing again, and it was like, couldn't exactly explain why, but it was like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like we all kind of follow something. Our friends are sick of hearing about it, so we eventually started a company. I started Tribe, which was an early social networking company. Some people in San Francisco know it. It was big for Burning Man people, but it wasn't big for many others. So that company it ended up selling for something, kind of 2 0-1. And then I stepped back and was more thoughtful, and I think I was around 40, realized that I wanted to start a consumer internet service that would be around for a long time and would really matter. And I set my goals high, and I really wanted to start a company that would be profitable early, not controlled by investors. Oh, go to the next chapter. Control your destiny. So, and I got myself in a lot of trouble on a video talking about this, but what I meant to say that day and today, always look for little camera phones in the bar, but what I meant to say was that, that you should, if in 2007 when I started, and even more so today, and it was interesting to hear all these startups, you can be profitable early without a lot of capital on the consumer internet. And just because your thing doesn't have revenues, it may not be the one that you should take out. You know, it may not be the company. It's the tough thing for entrepreneurs is figuring out when are you committed to the goal and when are you just being stubborn and hanging on to a bad idea or an idea that the world isn't ready for now or ever. And it's really tough. And we all have that friend who has that idea and you kind of don't understand it, but he keeps working at it, and you need to send him to a support group. So I like to tell people like my friend, I won't mention his name, get 5 or 6 of the smartest friends you have in a room, and especially after you've been hitting your head and no one wants to fund it, no one maybe wants to work for you, or you're shocked at like when someone says they do. Not that that's any of you guys, but get your friends in a room and ask them to rate this. What's the likelihood that they would want to put their own money into this idea of yours? And if all your friends say they wouldn't put their money in, go back to the drawing board. So that's my advice. I think so much of the failing fast is about failing on projects and ideas and not getting attached to those, but staying attached to your goal. And for me, it was that I really wanted to start this forever consumer internet service. So chapter 4 is about once you have your goal and you find a business that could go towards it and it's profitable, and you hopefully control it, your investors don't. That was an important one for me. It's important that you come up with a mission and values early on, and we did. So our mission was connecting the world, and we found this amazing opportunity with social virtual goods to actually help the world early on in our company's history, and actually do it in a way that our users really were into it, and it was good for them and us. So the other part of building a real culture in your company, we found really early on that it was important that we articulated a mission for ourselves and came up with values that we wanted to all live by as a community and hold each other to. And that's been really, really important. And as your company gets bigger and you don't know everyone's names and you want them all to work together and play nice, having the values on the wall actually makes sense. It's not some weird big corporate thing. So I think there's something else in this one. Grow great people. So I definitely learned the hard way that you can recruit some great people by yourself, but once you start to get to be a 50, 100, 150 people, it's really, and if you're growing fast, it's really hard to stay involved in the recruiting, and you have to grow fast. And what companies do, this is cliche in Silicon Valley, but it happens when you're in this like massive growth phase. You get contractors and you get anybody you can to just get the work done. And it's like, we don't have time for culture and values, and we don't have time to go through this long, slow process because we need to keep our servers up now. But what ends up happening in that process is that you start, hey Renee, you find that you're almost hiring people as an interviewing process. So it's like a very long interview. So we learned the hard way and eventually brought in an amazing head of HR and really slowed down the process, added a lot more friction, and brought in really high quality people. And then the stronger the people are that you bring in, the more that they demand that you live up to what you're talking about and let them be empowered in a real way, and they need to grow. That's the slide. So we built a culture in our company around leveling up. So we institutionalized the concept of leveling up because we needed people to take on bigger and bigger jobs. So one of our corporate goals is to have 60% of our employees level up a year, or 15% a quarter. So we do a review of every employee every quarter, and Amit is here somewhere. He's leveled up a couple times. He's in the back. All right. And I think it's really important and totally underrated to have good food. I was searching for food here tonight. I couldn't find any. I heard there was some. No, I looked upstairs. There was no food. I'm all about good food. Oh, okay, I wasn't here. But we hired, a lot of my friends, when you're over 40 and you're still doing a startup, it's like a pitcher for the Yankees that shouldn't still be walking to the mound, and all your friends are coaches or team owners, or they own a car dealership or whatever. And my friends are like, really, Mark, you're gonna do another startup? And because they're like VCs or whatever, thing you do. And I was like, yeah, I guess so, but I just didn't want to do there was no romance to me in the pizza boxes and the bad dust coming through the walls. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do this in style. So I want really good food. So I bought a building. I had these designers turn it into ghetto Google. We put in kitchens, healthy snacks. I hired cooks from across the street. I mean, when we were 18 people, we had multiple cooks. Today, I think our culinary department is 24 people. I mean, we have snacks, fresh, different snacks put out twice a day in every kitchen in the company. It's taken on a life of its own. But I can't tell you there's any economic justification for it. But it's worth it, because if it's an environment you want to be in, then so do your other employees. So I was in the New York Times over the weekend talking about this. I won't bore you because some of you read it. But I do think this culture of really making everybody CEOs, it's the only way that we've been able to scale our company. So being decentralized and really empowering people, making them accountable, and holding them to it. And sometimes Zynga's been accused of being a tough place to work, and I've heard that's on the Silicon Valley cocktail circuit. But I don't think so. You can talk to Amit and other people here tonight. But there's nowhere to hide. We're what are you CEO of? What are you delivering? So there's a lot of accountability, and not everybody likes that kind of environment. But there's a lot of people that do. I like to bring in people who were like me. Early in my career, I was what I refer to as a frustrated expert witness. So you were called to the stand by somebody older and much more knowledgeable than you who's making a decision. You'd tell them what was the right decision, and then they'd excuse you and tell you later what they decided to do, and you need to go implement it, whether it was right or wrong. I've never had a lot of respect for authority. I don't think that just because you're older or have more experience or whatever that you're necessarily right, including me. I have a lot of people tell me I'm wrong. So, but that's a good culture. Let's see. Oh, the point of this was that we had to not just make people CEOs, but we had to really embrace process at our company, because I managed 50 people myself. I tried to manage around 150, 175 people. I was having a total nervous breakdown. So I'd go to my board meeting, and it was like a therapy session. And I was like, this is horrible. It's not fun. And that's when I really started to embrace process. And that's where we put in OKRs, objectives and key results, and roadmaps. And now we're a little bit like GE. Everyone in our company, we really love process. Anytime we find problems, we try to turn it. We even took fire drills and turned it into an incident report. So if you have a fire drill, a thing goes wrong, you have to immediately file your incident report. But it helped. So we kept growing, and today we're 700 people or something. So and we're still scaling, and it's working. So because people are CEOs and they use process. I think I'm better without slides, but I figured I'd try slides. So this was the point I just made. So we can, we had all these objectives and key results, and it's a great thing to make goals and priorities, because otherwise you'll burn yourself out and you'll burn your teams out, because people will be, you may know the priorities, but for sure the people working for you don't. And if they don't communicate them to you, they're not communicating them to their teams. So asking people to write down their priorities and then defend them weekly, and defend what their priorities were last week and how they did against it is really, and it's really crucial to do that for ourselves. I called this one "Keep Your Eyes on the Prize." So, and I was talking to Scoble about this before I came on, and I was talking about how 2009 went for me, or the last couple of years. And what was interesting for me was just watching how my relationship and my company's relationship with the media has evolved over the last couple of years. And the point to me about Keep Your Eyes on the Prize was, in the beginning, I saw no reason to have any media coverage to my company, because it wouldn't get me users and I didn't need financing. So I kind of was like, well, why go talk to the media at all? In fact, I didn't even have a name on my company. So for the first 10 months, it was just called Mark Pincus's Apps. And then we launched and put a name on the company. And I still was like, you know, I don't think I need to talk to the media at all, so I'm not going to. And why do I have to? And I had some 26-year-old entrepreneur wet behind the ears. I was on some panel with him, and he said I was a total idiot. And he said, "You're an idiot. If you'd ever turned down the New York Times..." 10 minutes, okay. So anyway, I didn't want to have a fur coat moment. You don't want to be on the cover of anything until, like, you're no longer at your company. Then we got to a next stage where we actually saw a reason to engage somewhat, because we thought it mattered how our company or industry got positioned. And then we got to some scale, and we found that there was huge value, because the media, what we found is that the industry media started to shape the way that the consumer mass media would write about us, and the consumer mass media was actually starting to affect our users. Even though we didn't get any from that outlet, it affected how people thought about us. So what's the end point? So a lot of people, it's hard to think when you're at first starting about the end point, because you're thinking so much about, like, I need to get funding, I need to get customers, I need to prove that this is a good idea. But you get to scale, you get to a point where you have a company that's with revenues and profitable, and then all of a sudden people are like, well, how come you're not public? I'm sure you want to go public. When are you going to go public? It's like every media person that interviews you asks you that. And I've always scratched my head and just said, why? I mean, I don't get, if you want to build a company that's sustainable and that lasts, why on earth would you go public? I mean, if it has nothing to do with making your product successful in the market, it's only going to distract you. So I get really confused why anyone would go public who didn't have to. And then people say it's an exit. It is. I've gone public before. It's not an exit. It's an entry. I mean, it's not fun. I mean, if you guys think it's painful to get blogged and tweeted about now, wait until you have all these people, with all the anonymous people on stock chat boards saying what an idiot you are, and your employees are reading it and they're kind of like changing the code because some idiot commented that your company should not be doing this product or something. Or I think the end point is to turn the world into an agrarian society. So the most interesting thing to me now, so I'll talk about what interests me, since nobody asked questions yet. I'm interested in the question of how do you stay at scale? So you get to this point where your company is doing well and it's being recognized by a lot of people to the point that you're uncomfortable with it. And how do you, so for us, we need to figure out how to make sure that social gaming isn't like the pet rock of 2009, and that it's a real movement. So we need to figure out how do we feed this consumer behavior and make it something that consumers think of as a thing they will always do, just like YouTube and Facebook and Google. And so that's where I am, and what keeps me up at night now is how do I this year deliver on the promise of social gaming? So how do I make sure that people are getting the social? So tons of people, your friends are playing Farmville, but there's no way that you can actually talk to your friends in that game or interact with them, and that's bad. So that's the kinds of things that I'm thinking about and worrying about. And then how do we make social gaming a pervasive web experience and not a pervasive Facebook experience or iPhone experience? So I'm trying to figure out, well, what does it look like when the whole web is a Facebook experience? You know, we live off of these social breadcrumbs that you leave behind on Facebook or, you know, other places as you're playing our games. And I'm trying to figure out how do those social breadcrumbs happen anywhere on the web. And we just launched Farmville on MSN today. So we're starting to branch out, and we want our games to be in many other places. We know that all of the big companies are going to try to figure out their social strategies this year. We're trying to influence it. Perfect. We're trying to influence that because we want this to all be an interconnected world. And I say we, as entrepreneurs, it's to all of our benefit. It's actually, I believe, to all of our benefit if Facebook Connect is pervasive throughout all of these portals and sites. And not many, many different authentications or social graphs. But anyway, I'll stop there for questions.